Hey, good morning, everyone. It's Mantra Monday, and hi, it's akāri. How was everyone's weekend? What'd you do? So, this is, okay, I'm a little bit late this morning. I apologize. I am, I'm about 4 minutes late, and if my eye looks a little swollen, it's just because I got bit by a bug last night when I was sleeping, and the bug decided that my eye was, delicious. This comes under the category of, is it adhyatmika, adhibodhika, miseries from other living entities. But today, I want to continue on with the Sikshastakam verses, shlokas, in Sanskrit, the only verses composed by the saint and scholar Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who lived and manifested his pastimes in 16th century India. Good morning. In 16th century India, he was very active in Navadvip. He lived to the earthly age of 48 years old and was extremely, extremely active. He had his childhood, of course. Then he had his younger years between the ages of about 12 and 24, where he actually taught grammar spiritually by injecting the names of God in the grammar that he was teaching in Navadvip, and was successfully arguing and winning debates with the heavyweights of the day. Navadvip was the center of learning. It's where all the pundits or the scholars would go, and the university was, and all of that. So if you were going to teach there, of course, there can always be some rivalry as well amongst people that are in academia. Of course, Lord Chaitanya's mission was different, but he had to prove himself in that atmosphere. And so at the age of 24, he took sannyas, that is the renounced order of life, where basically you become, socially dead. So if you're in the ashram of a grihastha, or you're in the marriage ashram, you renounce that, and you basically cut off ties to your immediate family in deference to a higher family, the worldwide family. And it's a life of renunciation and austerity, and where you're traveling constantly, really not staying anywhere for very long. Although, of course, in India there's a monsoon season where people do have to stay in place for a few months. It rains heavily for about 3 months. So this is kind of the backdrop of Chaitanya, whose ultimate mission was to establish what I call the ultimate sound healing. For those of you who are into healing and quote, alternative methods of healing, you know that sound is very powerful and that it can have positive or negative effects on the body, the mind, and of course the spirit. So, given that we are in Kali Yuga, which is an age which is, full of misfortunes and troubles and very degraded, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission was to give the highest benefit to all humanity, and to all living entities, in the easiest way and the most powerful way and the most express way possible. So last week, when I went over the first verse, which was Cheto Darpana Marjanam Bhava Maha Devagni Nirvapanam, that's just the first line. In it, there's just a beautiful image of, it says that that the Sankirtan movement is like a white lotus, and that it extends its benediction to everyone, because it increases the ocean of transcendental bliss. and it enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we are always anxious, and that it puts out the blazing fire of material existence because it cleanses the heart, which has accumulated dust for years and years and years, of conditional life. In other words, we really think that we're this body and that these are our family members, and the country that we come from is it. In other words, we have forgotten that we are spirit souls, that we actually belong in a spiritual atmosphere, and that we are, Chaitanya put it beautifully, that we are wandering throughout this universe looking for happiness. Why? Because the soul is pleasure seeking. We are Sat-Chit Ananda. Sat-Chit Ananda. So that means that we are eternal, we are full of bliss, and we are full of knowledge. But of course we have to be in the right frame of mind and in the right consciousness to experience that bliss. And also because our original home, our original atmosphere is nothing but joyful. So I want to get into the second verse of the Sikshastakam today. Again, this book is enormous. I'm going to lift this book. This is the Chaitanya Charitamrita. This was written by Kṛṣṇa Das Kaviraj. He finished this book in the year 1615, in the month, the lunar calendar is the Vedic calendar, so in the month of May, June, in 1615. So in the 17th century, he completed this voluminous book, which he says is these are sort of the other auxiliary pastimes of Chaitanya, because there is another book by Vrindavan Das Thakur, which is another authorized biography of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But before I read this verse, there are some other. I want to set it up. So, this verses that I'm reading from come from the Antya Lila. They come from the end pastimes, of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And so from the ages of 36 to 48, he spent 12 years in a mystical trance. Day and night, he was in a mystical trance, actually experiencing the feelings of separation that Srimati Radharani experiences. So if you go back to the video that I did last week, and even the one that I did back on, I think it was the end of March for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's appearance day, I was explaining that there are two reasons for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's appearance in Kali Yuga. One is to help our butts out because we're in a hell of trouble. But the other reason is to experience the feelings that Srimati Radharani, the goddess of devotion, actually feels and experiences for the Supreme. And often that is in the mood of separation. And the mood of separation is considered to be the most ecstatic and the most, it's considered to be the most ecstatic. Even more than being with the beloved is being separated from the beloved and remembering different things about being with the beloved and anticipating being with the beloved again. And there's all kinds of transcendental emotions that go along with that. Of course, we experience these emotions here in this world, but they are materially tinged, so they do not have ultimately a positive outcome. But when you're talking about transcendental reality and transcendental emotions, it is on another level, to say the least. And it can be difficult for us to understand because we've been here for so long, but by hearing about these things little by little by little, we actually cleanse the dust from our heart and we're able to see clearly again. You can't see through a window that's encrusted in dirt, that's for sure. So the second verse that I want to read today, the setup is that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is in this kind of isolation, or sort of in this seclusion, with two of his most intimate associates. I believe it's Ramananda Roy and Swarup Damodar, that tended to him day and night, because at this point he was experiencing such a high level of ecstasy that he really couldn't be left on his own, because he was not recognizing things of this world. He needed to be cared for. So we were talking about the performance of the congregational chanting, or Sankirtan, of the Maha Mantra, and what is the benefit of that? Well, the benefit of doing that is that when you're in a group setting, like when you're at a rock concert and we're all singing along together at one particular song, there is a feeling, right? There is incredible amount of emotion that is generated from the act of singing all together. And you forget yourself. In other words, the sound vibration becomes so powerful and so loud that your mind doesn't have an opportunity to distract you from what it is that you're trying to focus on. And you can just dive right in and get into the sound. If you're here, please make a comment so I know you're here. I like to be personal and say hello to you. I've seen someone sort of like popping in and out. Maybe you're not staying, but if you are here, make a comment and say hello to me and let me know where you're from and how you're doing. So that is one of the benefits of chanting together. And of course, again, you're purifying the atmosphere, you're purifying your heart, and you're all doing it together. But what is the ultimate result from that is that you're actually awakening the transcendental bliss, and that you are ultimately going to gain the association of the Supreme. Just like, you're sitting next to someone, it's like that. Also, you are going to be immersing yourself in a great ocean. In a great ocean of what? In a great ocean of love. And the interesting thing about these verses, and the interesting thing about chanting mantra, is that, initially you may not be feeling very elevated, right? You're not experiencing these great depths of emotion that we are describing here. But over time, as you continue this, you actually start to live it. Because the sound vibration is absolute, because there is no difference between chanting about these activities and the reality of it, what will happen over time as you become more purified is that you will actually experience it. So it says here, Utila Vishada Danya Pade Apana Shloka Yahara Arta Shuni Sabayaya Dukkha Shoka. Lamentation and humility awoke within Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he began reciting another of his own verses. By hearing the meaning of that verse, one can forget all unhappiness. So he was actually living the things that he had been reciting previously, because now he is entering into that mood of Srimati Radharani. So the next verse says, nāmnām akāri bahudhā nija-sarva-śaktis tatrārpitā niyamitaḥ smaraṇe na kālaḥ etādṛśī tava kṛpā bhagavan mamāpi durdaivam īdṛśam ihājani nānurāgaḥ. All right, let me say that again. So this is the second verse of the Sikshastakam, which means 8 instructions. So now we're into the second instruction. Nāmnām akāri bahudhā nija-sarva-śaktis tatrārpitā niyamitaḥ smaraṇe na kālaḥ etādṛśī tava kṛpā bhagavan mamāpi durdaivam īdṛśam ihājani nānurāgaḥ. The translation: nāmnām, of the holy names of the Lord. Akāri, manifested. Bahudhā, various kinds. Nija-sarva-śaktis, all kinds of personal potencies. Tatra, in that. Tatrārpitā, bestowed. Niyamitaḥ, restricted. smaraṇe, in remembering. Not. kālaḥ, consideration of time. etādṛśī, so much. Tava, your. kṛpā, mercy. Bhagavan, O Lord. My. Although. Durdaivam, misfortune. īdṛśam, such. In this. Holy name. Ihājani, was born. Not. Nānurāgaḥ, attachment. So I want you to listen very carefully to this verse that I'm going to translate, or I should say, this is something that was a revelation to me also. So the translation, Chaitanya says, "My Lord, O Supreme Personality of Godhead, in your holy name there is all good fortune for the living entity, and therefore you have many names, such as Kṛṣṇa and Govinda, by which you expand yourself. You have invested all your potencies in those names, and there are no hard and fast rules for remembering them. My dear Lord, although you bestow such mercy upon the fallen conditioned souls by liberally teaching your holy names, I am so unfortunate that I commit offenses while chanting the holy name, and therefore I do not achieve attachment for chanting." Now that last line is the linchpin of this whole verse. I am so unfortunate that I commit offenses while chanting the holy name, and therefore I do not achieve attachment for chanting. So what are these offenses that he's talking about? And what is the barrier to actually achieving attachment for these names? Because these names are the names of the beloved, of the Supreme Beloved. And this is our nature. So what is holding us back from developing this attachment and very easily being able to dive into the ocean of bliss for which we are always anxious? What is actually holding us back from our own happiness? How are we getting in our way of being able to feel something that has been so liberally distributed? So liberally distributed that time, place, circumstance, religion, gender, income, occupation, geography have absolutely no bearing on being able to taste and dive into this happiness. There is absolutely no material obstacle to taking in this sound vibration, taking in this sound healing. It is the offenses that we commit while chanting. So I'll just go over a couple of them. One of them is fault finding. One of them is criticizing others. Always looking for faults. This is a barrier into being able to experience happiness and experience nectar. So when we find ourselves, and this is a tough one because in Kali Yuga, this is what we do. We're constantly tearing each other down and we're tearing ourselves down. And it is very tempting to do it because our situation here at this time is so unhappy. There are so many misfortunes and there is so much incompetence that it's very easy to jump on the bandwagon and find fault. Not that we shouldn't be thinking critically, but it creates a poisonous atmosphere. You know, you make one post on social media and someone is jumping on there and saying, you know, you suck, or I hate this, or whatever. It's a social media can be a great thing, but it's also can be a horrible thing. Why? Because it's a reflection of our own mentality, the anartas, the unwanted things that we are trying to purify ourselves of. Also, letting our mind wander. When we let our mind wander and we start thinking about other things while we are trying to chant, this is also a kind of an offense. Why? Because we are not realizing that when we are chanting, we actually have the Lord dancing on our tongue. There is no difference between the sound, vibration of the name and the transcendental personality of Godhead. They are one and the same. There is no difference. This is the sublimity, and this is the awesomeness, and I guess you could say it's also the mystery of bhakti and of mantra, and that because we are dealing in absolute realities. So if you have a guest over, how rude it is to say, okay, I really want to listen to what you have to say. And you sit down and they start to talk, and then you don't pay attention, or you start doing other things, or you start reading your mail or looking at your phone, or you get up and you kind of wander off and start getting involved in something else when that person is trying to pour their heart out to you. So that is exactly the situation, is that when you are chanting a mantra, you want to pay attention because the personality of Godhead is there with you, paying attention to you. So in order to get the full benefit, because all the potencies are there, you know, you are in the darshan of the Lord in sound, and everything is available to you in that moment. The whole universe is available to you in that moment. You want to drink that up, and you want to give it your full attention and not be rude and not be a space case. So what ends up happening is that if you are, good morning. So what ends up happening if you are chanting the mantra and you are not paying attention, this is like an offense. You know, you have this magical ability to conjure or to call the source of everything, and then you're not paying attention. So those are just a couple of the offenses. Another offense is to actually minimize the power of the chanting and to think that it is just imagination. It is not imagination. Even if you're not sure about it, it's best to just go on faith and to treat it preciously, to try and give it your full attention. So here in the first sentence it says, in your holy name there is all good fortune for the living entity, and therefore you have many names. such as Kṛṣṇa and Govinda, by which you expand yourself. So that's far out. So are these the only two names? No, these are not the only two names. There are many, many names. And for those of you that are practicing some kind of religion or some kind of spirituality, you know what those names are, right? It could be Jesus, it could be Yahweh, it could be Allah, it could be, there's so many names, right? So these are some of the names. Govinda means he who gives pleasure to the cows and the senses. Kṛṣṇa, that means all attractive, right? So there are many names, but the point is that whatever name that you are reciting, realize that you are in the presence of the Lord in sound, because the Lord expands himself in sound. So, for example, we gave that example of, the beginning of creation, where everything is in darkness, and Brahma is sitting in meditation, and he hears a word, right? He hears tapas. That's the word he hears, and that means that he was meant to sit in meditation and sit in austerity and be quiet so he could perceive the source of that sound. And eventually, after some time, he heard Om. And when he heard Om, in seed form, then he was able to actually perceive the source and perceive the creator and understand his relationship with the creator. So that's what we're trying to do here when we are chanting mantras. We are trying to understand, and not understand, but actually dive into and actually live our own relationship with the creator. And we are also trying to expand that understanding to the trees, the plants, the birds, the aquatics, and the other human beings that are around us, and also, relieve anxiety. Relieve the anxiety that everyone is feeling here in this atmosphere, because while Earth is a beautiful, beautiful place, because it is a manifestation of the love and the creativity of the Supreme, it is also a place of birth and death. And because we are eternal living entities, we don't want to die. So this whole experience of death and losing loved ones is very distressing for us. We are afraid of dying because we don't know where we're going, because we don't have a roadmap of practical tools to guide us to what our destination is, and more importantly, to uncover our identity before we get to the end. So when we actually, quote, get to the end, we actually are already connected and we know where we're going. We know what our role is. We know who we are. We know who our friend is. We're not there, in uncertainty or in confusion. We are at peace. But more importantly, we are feeling joy, and we are feeling joyful. This is like one of the main problems that we have here. So when you're feeling uncertain and you're feeling in anxiety, just on a day-to-day basis, I don't have a job, or there's no money coming in. How are my needs going to be met? What is going to become of me, right? If you have a tool like the Maha Mantra that you are able to recite under any circumstances, you will find that your anxieties are alleviated, and also some pretty amazing stuff will start to happen. Is that because now you have this connection that you have reactivated. I should say you have the connection, but you have reactivated the connection in sound, right? And now it is a living thing, or you're experiencing the life of it because it is a living thing. Chaitanya means the living source. Then you will start to experience more, miracles in your life and on a day-to-day basis as well. And whenever you're feeling some distress, just say the name. Just say the name, and you will feel better. If you can't say it out loud, you can say it in your mind. You can say it in your head, because sometimes we're in circumstances where we cannot do that. So I'm gonna read this again in the Sanskrit, and then I'm going to read again the translation. Nāmnām akāri bahudhā nija-sarva-śaktis tatrārpitā niyamitaḥ smaraṇe nā kālaḥ etādṛśī tava kṛpā bhagavan mamāpi durdaivam īdṛśam ihājani nānurāgaḥ. Nāmnām, of the holy names of the Lord. Akāri, manifested. Bahudhā, various kinds. Nija-sarva-śaktis, all kinds of personal potencies. Tatra, in that. Arpita, bestowed. Niyamitaḥ, restricted. smaraṇe, in remembering. Not. kālaḥ, consideration of time. etādṛśī, so much. Tava, your. kṛpā, mercy. Bhagavan, O Lord. mamāpi, although. durdaivam, misfortune. īdṛśam, no, that's correct. Such. Iha, in this. Ihājani, was born. Not. nānurāgaḥ, attachment. Translation. My Lord, O Supreme Personality of Godhead, in your holy name there is all good fortune for the living entity, and therefore you have many names, such as Kṛṣṇa and Govinda, by which you expand yourself. You have invested all your potencies in those names. You have invested all of your potencies in those names. And there are no hard and fast rules for remembering them. My dear Lord, although you bestow such mercy upon the fallen conditioned souls by liberally teaching your holy names, I am so unfortunate that I commit offenses while chanting the holy names, and therefore I do not achieve attachment for chanting. So that was the second verse in the Sikshastakam prayers. We are diving into the ecstasy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is modeling the mood of a devotee for us, someone who is actually walking the walk and talking the talk, trying to, actually not trying to, but giving us an example of what it's like to actually feel that way and be in that mood of humility and compassion and sublimity, and what it is like to have these verses actually come alive over time by simply the process of reciting and chanting them. So again, it's you have to learn how to crawl before you can walk. So even though, you know, it may seem like a long task and a winding road, the more that we can do these things together, especially at this time, which is why the Sankirtan movement, singing together, san together, kirtan, singing, the Sankirtan, singing together, makes it so much easier for us to get the full benefit and the joy, and to basically rock out to the Maha Mantra and to spread the benediction moon and the white lotus that has all good fortune for all living entities, that extinguishes the blazing fire of material existence and relieves all anxiety, and ultimately delivers to us the bliss for which we were always hankering, regardless of time, place, and circumstance. It is free, it is portable, and it is like an awesome transcendental bubble that we can live in at any time. So I hope that this was uplifting for you today, and I'll be back next Monday with verse 3 of the Sikshastakam prayers. I want to thank everyone for the lovely comments and all the loves and likes and wows on the photo that I posted. I try and share with you my journey as a songwriter, and from my beginnings until now. And again, it's still the month of April, and if you haven't signed up for it yet, please take advantage and go to the sign up form that's on this Facebook page, because I am giving away free gifts. I am giving away music from deep in my vault, and we're going back to some storytelling from my Paris years. I've had a long career in music, and so I wanted to share that with you, no strings attached, and give you an opportunity to jam out, as Megan would say, and enjoy. So thanks for all the new people that are here. Megan, it's really nice to have you here. And if anyone is so inclined to write a recommendation on this page, that would be wonderful. It will help others. All right, so that's it. So I think I'm going to pop over to Instagram, my Instagram family, in about a half an hour, because I have neglected them. If you're not following me on Instagram, you can follow me there too, _musical_yoga. And until next time, be well, be safe,